You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Hey everybody, welcome to Believe in Bills podcast on Sirius XM, brought to you by Power 96.5 and Bet Online. We have a great show today, and I have a great guest. And this is our first inaugural show, and we wouldn't be on this platform if it wasn't for this guy. We got Justus the General in here, we got Pro Bowler Reuben Brown in the building, but our special guest is no other than the legendary New York Giant himself, Kyle Banks, Hall of Fame guy. Welcome to Believe in Bills.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah. You guys, I'm delighted to be here on the show.
Absolutely, man. And I guess we have some things in common now. Now that y'all got our old offensive coordinator, y'all got our GM. How are things happening for the Giants organization? With those two guys being in the fold.
Man, I got to tell you, you guys sent us a good one. Like, the culture in the building is incredible. The players love him. I've had a chance to spend some time with Dave's. He's a cigar guy. I smoke cigars, so every once in a while we get a chance to chop it up, man. And he's just a great guy, man. He's different. Like, he is exactly what this organization needed. He's not the guy that came in to say, we're gonna just kind of patchwork this thing. Between him and Joe Shane, this is a complete rebuild. It's not a renovation. You know what I mean? Like, some coaches come in and they look at the pieces they have and they try to make it, and they're like, the ownership gave them the wrecking ball and say, build it the way you want it. And so it's a complete new construction, and it's a good energy in the building.
No doubt. Rube, you go.
Yeah, Reuben here. Mr. Banks is
What's up, Rube? It's Carl, man. Call me Carl.
I sometimes I get in that way because I've always looked up to you. You like my big brother, my uncle, type figure. So I try to show that respect. I got mad love for you, and I got tons of questions. As a retired player that stays involved with the Giants and then their organization in that area, and I'm sure you do a lot of appearances and promotions for them. How often do they pull you aside and ask you about your success, and if they are doing the things around the organization that you can see? That basically any input. Yeah, do they ask you? Do they talk to you?
So what has happened since Joe and Brian have been here in this whole regime, they understand the legacy of Giants football, but it was, there was a legacy in the 80s and 90s and a little bit in the 2000s, but it's been 7 or 8 years, right? So now they pull on, some players that have been part of the building the championship culture here. He's had me speak to some of the rookies. We talk a lot, but listen, they have their own plan, and listen, they don't lack knowledge and talent themselves as individuals, right? Joe has been a part of some great organizations. Brian Daboll has 6 Super Bowl rings, I believe, 5 or 6 Super Bowl rings, 5 pro rings, and I think 2 college. So they kind of understand what championship culture is about, but just having players in the building that wore the uniform, that's been a part of the organization in a positive way. He's called on us to, do a few things.
That's amazing because, it's really tough to navigate the New York landscape. Now, Buffalo is New York. A lot of people don't realize that from time to time. I didn't even know it myself, Carl, when I was drafted by the Bills. I didn't know where Buffalo was.
You thought you thought you was in Canada?
Yeah, totally. When I got here, I was like, where I was at. But my good teammate Keith Hamilton told me I was in a good spot. So
the Hammer.
Yeah,
you went to school at Pitt, right?
Yes, I went to Pitt, and also Hammer and I played against each other in high school. So we grew up together.
Cool.
Yeah, we're long time friends, and both of us were born in New Jersey. I was born in Inglewood and moved to Virginia, and like him, his family moved down to Virginia and so forth.
Nice.
So the relationship goes. But
Beautiful.
you know, he's an eclectic dude, and you've played with many a guy similar to him, or like the Hammers of the NFL. On the Giants team right now, do you see any guys that resemble any of that type of moxie or attitude to the game?
That's an interesting question because the game has changed so much that, and the further you're away from it, if you played it at a high level, you tend to appreciate good play no matter what the rules are. But I was having this conversation with Devin McCourty about a month ago because this debate was going on as to whether, today's players could have played in my era or my era a player could play in today's game. And I'm like, talent is talent, right? I'm like, there are many of players that play today that could physically play in the 80s and 90s. And I think players in the 80s and 90s could play in today's game from a skill set standpoint. Because if people say, well, the rules could a guy like Ronnie Lott or Bruce Smith be able to play? I'm like, you're assuming that they weren't smart people. Right? They're smart enough. Like, the reason the rules are changed today is because of guys like them, right? They were able. The rules changed because of them, so they had to adjust based on what the rules did to them. But I would say the biggest difference, and I can't say whether they could adjust or not, is the mental aspect of it. Mm-hmm. The mental game in the 80s and 90s, because practices were different, the approach to the game was a lot different, and games were more violent. Let's be honest, because of the rules were different, and so I think physically, could you take Aaron Donald and put him in today's game? Could you put Josh Allen in yesterday's game? Hell yeah, right? Like, they're just as good. But and then some players mentality-wise can play in any era, right? And I don't doubt that about the group of players that play in today's game. Could Jalen Ramsey, does he have a dog in him that could play in the 80s and 90s? Absolutely he could, right? But there's plenty, like Stephon Diggs, right? He's a dog, period. Put him in any era, he's going to be a dog, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate the players today. I do believe physically it could go either way, but I just think the mental aspect of it, some players that are good today probably couldn't play mentally. Hold up in a game that was played on different terms. Because I'm looking at this clip of Micah Parsons getting checked by Leonard Fournette, right? Yeah. Like, Micah was good with it for a while until people start going. Yeah. And then I'm like, you know what? That's football, bro. Yeah. Like, that's the objective. They're supposed to hit you when you ain't looking. Yeah. Like, be glad that they are no longer allowed to hit you below the waist when they do that. Or they used to have it where it was above the knee. Mm-hmm. Dude, they used to have some guys that would hit you on the thigh, right? I don't know what that board is, that thigh board. You probably couldn't walk for like half a game after that. So they've
It was
changed the
called the
rules to make
vicious
them
scoop.
better. And I was shocked that Vaughn said that they need to get it out of the game. I'm sure it would make it a lot easier for him to break every record in the world. But it's just part of the game, right? So, and I think Micah Parsons knew that. He was a little upset, and he called it a bitch move or whatever it was. But it's, that's part of the game. He gets it. And he knows the better he plays, the more attention he's going to get, right? So, but also, like, on your original point, you said it towards the Giants, a guy like Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Adoree Jackson, Julian Love would have a place in a era before he played. I think these two young players that they got at tackle, I'm starting to see a little dog in them. Like Andrew Thomas is his second year, and Evan Neal is his first, but they got a little something to them too, because they don't seem to be scared. But it's yet to be seen, right? Xavier McKinney is a kid that could probably play in any era. So I mean, you can look at a team, and talent is talent, but like it's the mentality that you play with. That, and then back to Vaughn. So the greatest closer, and I played with Lawrence Taylor, but the greatest closer the game has ever seen, period, is Bruce Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Game on the line, and you need somebody to close it out. And I would say it if Lawrence was sitting right next to me, and Lawrence was no slouch, right? He's the greatest defensive player in this game. But Bruce Smith is the greatest closer I've ever seen in football. Like, when you need a play in the fourth quarter, Bruce Smith, like, just go back and look at the film. He's closing out a game, forcing a turnover, forcing a fumble, getting a big sack. I think Von Miller is today's closer, right? Like, when people say, well, is there a difference between him and Khalil Mack? I'm like, hell yeah. Like, if it ain't going well for Khalil early in the game, it ain't going well for him late in the game. But Vaughn, like, he may not make any noise for 2.5 quarters, but when it's time to make a play, he's the guy, right? So you're not like shutting him down. He's going to make plays, and he makes impact plays. That's the difference between a Khalil Mack and a Von Miller. They could have similar stats, and one guy's impact with the same stats is going to be different than the other guy.
So speaking of teams, you mentioned how, a good team is a good team, or good players are good players, rather. And of course, being a superstar at Michigan State, playing in a couple Super Bowls, what a good team looks like, or a great team even. Does that translate to today's game versus when you played? And do you see any of those in the Giants organization right now?
So that has left the building here at the Giants. They're hoping to get to be a consistent team. You got to be a consistent team before you can be a good team, and you got to be good before you can be great, right? I think modern era, obviously, the blueprint are the New England Patriots. They've won more in the last decade than any other team ever. But a great team, I would say, is the Kansas City Chiefs. They're consistent, they're good, and they're great when they need to be, right? Mm-hmm. I think just below them is the team in Buffalo, and that was a matter of 15 seconds, was it, Mook?
13.
What was that last play? Yeah, so, but that loss, I think, propels the Buffalo Bills to a different mindset. I remember when the 1985 Bears were the thing, and we thought we were the best defense in football. We played them in the NFC Championship game, and we lost. And we left that game knowing that there was still another level to go to. So obviously that following year, we went and won the Super Bowl, and we dominated the whole season. And I think that's where Buffalo is now. They're that team that's going on. They're consistent. They're really good. They're going on to be a great team, and I think they're going to be built to win consistently because they're right there right now.
Absolutely, man.
We brought this up last week when we talked. Remember, guys, when I was talking about the momentum that you build once you start winning and getting that taste in your mouth.
Yeah,
it becomes infectious. And then once that culture is of winning, everybody's bought in. A loss here and there is a growing step for good teams, for great teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the Detroit Pistons back in the day.
Yeah.
When they lost, but then they made it over the hump. You're right. I feel the Buffalo's in that same position. And I know this week they're playing a team that's a real competitor that the Giants actually, came back on this week. And the Titans are competitors. They're definitely a team you got to face. What did you take away from that Titans game?
They were a playoff team, but after seeing them up close and personal, and the Giants don't have the talent base that Buffalo has. The Giants quarterback is not playing with the same confidence as Josh, right? So I don't think Tennessee is going to put up much of a fight against, if Buffalo comes to play like they did last Thursday, sheesh, forget it. Like, they just served notice on the entire league. Like, we got a bitter taste in our mouth after that playoff loss, and we know what it takes now, so we're going to start early and just keep going. I don't see Tennessee being a team that can do a lot against Buffalo. I really don't.
No, I don't think they got the weapons. They're a
playoff caliber team, but the Giants put together a great game plan of containing King Henry, and then they just did what they needed to do. But it's like Buffalo's at a different level. Like, they're just at a different level.
Yeah, especially with their defense being as effective as they are with Vaughn. I think this is just another opportunity for the Bills to move closer to their goal, and stay true to what they set for themselves. I mean, I myself, I get a little nervous with Tennessee, Carl.
We lost to them 2 years in a row.
Well, see, that's the thing. Now, and Carl knows this, and you've played those teams that just are a pain in your ass.
Yeah.
You could go out and you practice, you're ready for all the teams, and you know what to do, you beat them. But then it's that team that when you play them, it's almost like college rivalry. All bets are off, and they somehow throw a cog in the mess up the whole thing. So Tennessee's has been that for the Buffalo Bills over the years.
That goes to the old saying, styles make fights, right?
Yeah.
They're just certain teams that, when you look at like this Triple G Canelo matchup, right? It's just style. Like, they could go on individually and beat everybody, but when they come to each other, it's the style of those two fighters that that makes it more difficult. And I get your point, because when I played, it was the Philadelphia Eagles, and we owned the Washington Redskins at the time. But then the Redskins couldn't beat the Eagles. The Eagles couldn't beat the Redskins. So we couldn't beat the Eagles, but the Eagles couldn't beat the Redskins, and we owned the Redskins. So that's how we were running through the NFC East.
Right.
So I understand.
That's
No, we do have a shored up defensive line now, or at least it looks shored up from last week's perspective. Tim Settle, Jordan Phillips, and all those guys, they look like they were stopping the run pretty well. Of course, they don't have Derrick Henry, so it's a different animal. But I feel like this year we should have a better shot at that being a better matchup for us because we have a much better defensive line this year.
Yeah, that helps. I mean, listen, the key is getting Henry running sideways, but don't let him turn the corner on your smaller defensive backs. But it's just like you said, it's up front. It all starts with that front four. If you can get some push at the line of scrimmage and set the edge, you'll have a decent chance. I mean, you're not going to stop the dude. He's just too good, but you can contain him.
Yeah, and, with the new additions that we got on the flip side of that, we do got Roger Saffold. We do got David Questenberry. Those two guys was blocking for Derrick Henry last year. So now those two guys are Buffalo Bills.
True.
And we do have Daquan Jones that was a defensive tackle for Tennessee last year. Now he plays defensive tackle for us. Okay. So that's one guy that I know that's not going to be scared of Derrick Henry, when it comes to that. So, and we owe Derrick Henry, by the way, because last time he played, he ran for 200 yards against us. And I'm quite sure that your boy Dable has been on the line with Coach McDermott and Leslie Frazier on giving them a few tips.
Yeah. Well, Leslie did a hell of a job last week, man. And I think he's got something to prove too, just based on the way things ended. And Leslie's a hell of a coach. But, we are also looking at a different NFL because, used to say, well, if you can keep time of possession and hold the ball, you keep their best player off the field. Nah, these cats is like, Dabo's like, no, we scoring points. Yeah. Like if we score enough points, we can eliminate him too, because then they got to pass the football. So I think that's got to be the approach, especially with the way the Buffalo Bills offense is playing. Just score points, and then that will take them out of their running game.
Yeah, typically they're good at moving the ball, and then, or at least last year versus Tennessee, they had trouble in the red zone, and that was where we messed up because we allowed them to stay in the game because we're kicking field goals and whatnot, and they are still able to, give it to Henry and stay in the game that way. So if we're able to, actually put up touchdowns when we get to the red zone, I feel like that should bode well for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the Bills they'll be putting up touchdowns all day. I mean, just with that showing that they put out right now, they're as well though as any team in the NFL, and it's going to be really tough for Tennessee to slow them down.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they put together a complete game. I mean, you look at that Rams game, wasn't quite as complete, but the second half was complete as it get, right? And they still won by 21 with 4 turnovers. Now, if you take away those turnovers, it easily could have been super ugly. So if they can, tone those turnovers down this week versus Tennessee and play their game. We know that it's going to be tough for defenses to really stop this high potent offense. It's going to be another track meet out there on Monday night.
Yeah.
It's going to be going crazy. The first time, Reuben, now this is the first time that the Bills opened up a home opener on Monday night.
It's going to be exciting, man.
Yeah. That Buffalo Bills crowd been waiting for something like this for a long time. While I played for the Bills, the rumor was that they didn't want to have any Monday night games or televised games because the Buffalo Bills crowd be a little too crazy.
Yeah, they do. They get crazy. They do. The Bills Mafia, man, they get nuts on Monday night. And this is like when the team is really good, that's when it gets really, really crazy with the fans.
Yeah. They take it to I think the Buffalo Bills Mafia really taking it to another level. Carl, I watched the whole thing evolve. I came in 95. I'm just a young guy. And they weren't even called the Bills Mafia, but I would call my family and tell them, I said, man, they are tailgating at least a week before the game.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it didn't matter who the Bills are playing. They could have been playing the Sisters of the Poor. The Bills fans were lined up asking for autographs at least a week before the game.
Wow.
And it was an amazing thing for me as a player, because I'm like, you only imagine that in college,
Right.
like that type of environment. I was telling the guys last week, that's what Buffalo offers a pro athlete. You show up, you're gonna be like, whoa, wait a minute, did I take a step back in time? Because the community really gets involved in it. It's a cool thing. It's a really festive
absolutely.
time. It's a great environment. And I would honestly have to say it's definitely an environment where, opposing fans really don't have to worry about any problems with the Buffalo Bills fans. They're probably going to offer you 2 or 3 shots. Shots to drink, not shots to the head. You know what I mean? That's about the only problem you're going to have in Buffalo. Can you handle any booze? Because it's a great environment. It's good to see them, in the driver's seat right now. And they're going to be able to do that with, some hard work they put in to get to this point, because there's been a lot of ups and downs for them. Josh wasn't the guy that everybody thought at first. They actually, people were questioning their choice with Josh when they initially got him. And then when Josh developed, he is a running guy, and they're afraid that he's going to get hit. Is he going to be hurt? But Josh actually, and Mook, you guys can tell me, you could see steps in his maturation each year. He took one year, he would make a mistake,
every
interception. And then the next thing it's rare that you catch or watch an athlete develop in that way. I mean, sometimes they just spark it and they just got it. But you could actually see his steps of progression. And that's a pat on the back to the organization, because the quarterback is a delicate position to bring along and develop, as you can see, Carl, right there in the Giants. The Giants been working on that formula for some years now.
Yeah. The thing about Josh, he's got a little something different about him, because, and I was talking to Coach Dabes here, and I said, Dabes, correct me if I'm wrong, but, Josh is a dude that's got a lot of arm arrogance. Like, if he throws an interception, he don't think he made a mistake. He just think he didn't throw that fucker hard enough.
Right.
Or soon enough. You know what I mean? Like, he's that guy, like, he's not shy on confidence, right? And Coach Daboll's like, you're right. He's like, he does have arm arrogance, and he's confident. Like, so, let him operate. And they, obviously the mark of a good coach is to refine a player's game so that he could be his best, right? But not to take away the things that he's confident in. And so, I guess his process is different, with, maturation as from rookie to where he is right now. But the one thing they never told him is to be afraid to throw a certain ball. Because, like, you look at him, man, it's like, he's like, there's very few quarterbacks. Like, Brett Favre had arm arrogance, right? Like, he don't believe you can pick him off. Like, if you got it, it was something he didn't do, right? I didn't throw it soon enough, or I didn't throw it hard enough, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the decision-making of Josh has gotten better. But, like, you see every game, you see that arm arrogance somewhere where he challenges the defender, and having a guy like Stephon Diggs allows him to do that as well, because he'll throw it somewhere and either your guy's getting it or nobody's getting it, right?
So I have a question for Mr. Banks and Mr.
Call
Brown.
me Carl, please.
Okay. So I am a proponent. Of course, I'm only 27, right? I haven't been around a ton of time, but Josh Allen, with his physical abilities, being able to throw the ball as hard as he can, as far as he can, as accurately as he can, having the intangibles, the athleticism, and I guess his smarts doesn't necessarily go into what I'm about to ask, but I do think that is also a positive attribute for him. Do you guys think, or where would he rank for you guys as the most physically gifted quarterback of all time? Because Chris Sims, or no, it wasn't Chris Sims, it was Jordan Palmer, said that he is the most physically gifted quarterback of all time, but you got your Elways and, guys like that. So what would you guys say to something like that?
I would say they're not wrong, but here's what I will say. Let's give him some time to create some distance between him and the rest of the pack, or some semblance to where he stands. We know he has generational type arm talent, right? And I call it arm arrogance, right? But let's give it some time. Let's, of all time, let's give him some time to really show what he can do, right? Right now, he's a great player. It was no different than, if I was playing with Joe Montana and John Elway and Dan Marino, I knew they were all great. As their careers went on, they were all-time greats, right? But, in the moment, he's one of the greatest playing the game right now. And probably greater than a lot of great quarterbacks before him, but we don't know where he is all time until he wraps this whole thing up. And hopefully that's not for another 10 years.
Right. Man, Carl, you said exactly what I was going to say. We won't know until he's done. And right now he's doing things that we can project what we think where he may sit. But until he's done, we won't know. But he's good to go right now. And being good to go right now is all he needs to be.
Exactly.
And the later stuff will take care of itself,
Yeah.
John Lee Hooker used to say, nothing but the best and later with the garbage, so
exactly.
it's right now, and he's doing it now, and he looks like he's on the right track. You played against the best,
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bills did a phenomenal job with his development, and I don't think an organization has ever done this type of work with a franchise quarterback. You can't even put Peyton Manning in this because he was already trained to go before he set foot up in Indy.
Yeah.
When you talk about a guy that from a small school, they, get drafted in the top 10, and there were some flaws that Josh needed to work on. Coming out of college, he did have a strong arm, but pretty much that was it. But when you draw comparisons to Cam Newton, you see the potential right away that could visually happen. So what do the Bills go and do? They know that Josh struggled with his short and intermediate accuracies coming out of college. So that was something that they wanted to work on. They brought in Cole Beasley, a guy who could operate underneath, a technician underneath that could get open for Josh. They brought in John Brown, a guy that can stretch the defense. They brought in Emmanuel Sanders, a guy that can run in all the routes. And then obviously they brought the alpha dog in, and Stephon Diggs. So when you look at that development in the first couple of years, other than throwing bombs to Robert Foster, the Bills kind of went away from throwing deep the past couple of years. And I wonder why did they do that? But it was working more or less on Josh short to intermediate. So when you look at it now in its entirety of what Josh was able to put together Thursday night, and everybody just kept saying, hey, the maturation process on how he just takes what the defense gives you. And now he's taking those shots up top one-on-one with Gabe Davis and taking those shots deep to Stephon Diggs. It's really going to pose a problem because now this quarterback can hit you from anywhere accurately. The Bills have fixed those problems, and now that problem has become an issue with the rest of the league. So they did a phenomenal job with his development.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if Dable could bring that out in Daniel Jones. I watched that game, and I do see how they plan to use him in that manner because Daniel Jones is a mobile guy. He can extend plays with his legs, and he can run for first downs as well. I did see Dable do a couple of plays that he took from the Bills with the little orbit motion, throw it to the guy. He looked like he was about to go, but I guess nobody was open. So he had to eat it and run with it. I think it was Kadarius Toney they did that.
Yeah, play. Kadarius Toney, yeah.
So, he's took a few pieces, some of his plays that he used in Buffalo and definitely used them in New York and to much success, with those guys. But, Carl, could this team, with that victory on Sunday, can this team contend for an NFC East title?
You know what? As my old coach Bill Parcells says, that's just one in a row. Don't get too ahead of yourself.
I love it.
Next week is a different animal. So I think we're a long ways from having that discussion because we don't really know what the NFC East is. The Giants are doing their part.
Theoretically, though, like Cowboys didn't look good. The Eagles, they don't necessarily have a quarterback yet. And the Commanders, I don't believe in them at all. Theoretically, do you think they could do it?
Listen, they were all bunched up last year. By Thanksgiving, there was no clear winner of the division. So anything's possible. But like I said, it's just one in a row. So let's not get ahead. Let's see what they really are. Because at some point you get into games where your game plan could be great, but your talent won't allow you to come out victorious. And there are a few of those on the schedule. But as long as they're fighting in their weight class right now, and I think Tennessee, they punched above their weight and they were able to win that. Carolina this week, I think, is in their weight class. So let's see how they do there. Then we can have a conversation like at week 4 or 5 when we see what the rest of the division is doing. But as long as they're winning, they have an opportunity to win the division. But shit, they won 4 games last year, and up until Thanksgiving, they were still in the conversation of winning the division. So, let's see what happens.
Do you believe in Daniel Jones? Like, do you believe he could potentially be the franchise quarterback going forward?
Yeah, I do. I think what we saw Sunday was a guy who was, in my opinion, he was very robotic. Just doing things not to make mistakes. He had a rough off season. Everybody, the entire world was down on him. And, he just, you could look and see that he wasn't playing with his full confidence, but he was playing with the confidence in the game plan, but not really operating within his own constitution, if you will. So he made good decisions with the football, with the exception of the interception, but you could tell he wasn't free flowing. He didn't, he's not confident. And then he took some shots in the game because the guard position didn't hold up. And so I don't think he wanted to make mistakes. He was playing not to make mistakes, but I think once he settles into this offense, he can be the guy. I don't know how Joe Shane thinks of him compared to what's coming out of college, but right now, if he has a great run here, he'll be fine.
Well,
speaking of that great run, I don't mean to cut you off, Justus, but that great run, how much of that great run is going to lie on the shoulders of Saquon Barkley, and how much pressure does Barkley take off of Daniel Jones?
Well, a run game will take a lot off of the plate of a quarterback because it just forces defenders to have to defend 2 phases of the game and then a third phase with a quarterback who can run. But his success, listen, they've got, between Mike Kafka and Brian Daboll, they got some of the most gifted play callers in the sport. And so they're going to give them every opportunity to have success. If you look at the first half of the game, it seems like they were probing around to see what worked. And then, a few Saquon runs happened. And we know Daboll has always been accused of not wanting to run the football.
Running the ball, yeah.
But they started off the second half feeding Saquon, and they ran the offense through him. That could be a different story on any given weekend if they see something that they like offensively.
I've been critical of him over the years. Everyone knows I'm a hardcore run believer, and I really believe that's the aspect of the game that the offensive coordinators really forget to implement because it's very effective in securing a win for you, setting up all your pass plays and everything. Now, I'm not naive to know that the game has changed to the point where passes are practically run plays.
Right.
You know what I mean? But you have to commit to them and commit to guys that actually run the ball, get the ball to those guys and they run with it, opposed to, you know, some setup things with running your quarterback and say, I'm fine with that. But specific guys you drafted, running backs, they still exist.
And some are pretty good at it if you give them a chance.
Throw them the ball. They can catch and run with that ball. And if you don't have those guys, you probably shouldn't have them. But you know, I've been very critical of him and his commitment to the run, and all coaches in the NFL right now. Just a touch. Give the people, how effective is a good running game, and how difficult does it make a defender to defend the offense?
Well, I'll be honest with you. In today's NFL, because the players are smaller, right? And every team, they build their personnel based on how to defend the pass, right? So I think, you know, linebackers are really going to become safeties in the next year or so.
Going right now.
So when you get smaller players on the field, your running game could be even more effective in today's NFL if you use it correctly, because it's just smaller guys on the field.
Thank you. Oh man, we're gonna sit down and rap one day. I'm gonna
for sure.
I'm gonna chew your ear off, like all my friends. Like, go talk to somebody else about running the ball. You know, I'm usually the guy talking about running the ball.
Is that true for all offensive linemen? I know that's like a stigma that you guys really like to run the ball.
You know, I think it's just me. You know, I'm just over. I grew up loving running backs and the running game. You know, I'm from the day of Earl Campbell, you know, Walter Payton, all of these guys. You know, that's Tony Dorsett is, you know, my guy. So, you know.
Is that Dickerson? Is that time as well?
Carl, who was some of your premier running backs as a young guy you looked at?
Well, I played against most of the guys, like Tony Dorsett. I caught Earl Campbell at the end, but like my era, and then I had Billy Sims, but then, you know, Eric Dickerson, Roger Craig, Barry Sanders, Thurman Thomas. So I had an era of really great running backs and quarterbacks in the time that I played.
John Riggins.
Yeah, John Riggins.
Is Franco Harris in that era?
No, Franco was done by the time I came in.
Before. But you know, I'm not just that. I know it's easy for offensive linemen. We always talk about running the ball because we know how tough it is to get us up there and battle with these defensive linemen. I mean, Carl, you rush the passer from time to time, and you know that you know, you get a big 300-pounder stepping backwards, you automatically have an advantage.
So running the football gives the offensive lineman the advantage, especially on pass plays, because, you know, you've been pounding the guy enough that now he's got to worry about getting hit again.
And also, you know, I don't think a lot of people or people watching and listening understand the effectiveness of an offense when they start moving really fast on a defense. You know, what are some things that start going to you, man? Because it can wear you out physically, number one.
Well, that's the thing. It physically wears you, but then that's when the mental mistakes come too, because, you know, it's like when a team goes hurry up, it limits what your defensive personnel can do in terms of substitution, but it also limits the type of plays you can call. And once an offense is going, like, I would say, for instance, just relative to my era, the K-gun offense, right? And then you guys had Peyton Manning's, whatever they call that, hurry-up offense. But like that K-gun offense, you got 2 calls, right? And they got their whole playbook. Right. And so because you can't get your personnel changed until a timeout is called, and so they're just going and going and going. And so you got 2, maybe 3 calls that you can go to, but you got to defend everything that they do, and all calls are not good for everything. So if you're in 2 coverages, 1 front, it ain't gonna hold up against everything, especially when they just pounding you with it. So that really does give you an advantage from a personnel standpoint. Offenses can do a lot more in a hurry up.
And it was definitely more effective when the unit has been together for a while. Young, inexperienced offense, it's very difficult because that 3 and out it's not good. You go a hurry up situation, you go 3 and out, and you have the defense sitting over there resting, chomping at the bit like that. Yeah, let's do another 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's do some more 3s. But where the O-line is like, no, we'd rather do 12.
Exactly.
We'd rather do 13 opposed to that.
Yeah.
So a young team that's really difficult for them to implement, and it takes some time and some cohesiveness to be built before you can really pull that off effectively. I set that up a little bit because I wanted you to mention the K-gun. So
K-gun was
speaking of that K-gun though. Speaking of that K-gun, hey. Back in that time in 91, Super Bowl 25, the Bills did have the number 1 offense, high power scoring offense, averaging 30 some odd points a game. Yeah. You got the Hall of Fame, coach of all time, and Bill Belichick was the DC. What was that actual game plan for Super Bowl 25 to stop that high powered K-gun? Because nobody could do what you guys were able to do in that Super Bowl.
Come on, let's get to the good stuff. Everybody in Buffalo. What happened? Thank God you back, because everybody in Buffalo gotta hear this.
I was saying, I'll take you back to that first meeting pre Super Bowl when Bill Belichick told us that in order to win the game, Thurman Thomas has got to get 100 yards rushing. Right? And we thought, because we were a prideful defense, and we were like, no, we ain't giving 100 yards to nobody, right? And like Bill's like, no, you have to get if he gets 100 yards rushing, then their offense is not doing what they've been doing for the last 8 weeks of the season. So, Bill started the meeting like that, and then he said, in scouting an opponent, you normally take 4 games because that's a tendency. He said, but we went back 8 games, and now it's a trend, meaning they had 1 run to Thurman Thomas, which was a draw play, and everything else was a swing pass. It was part of their passing game. So a pass to Thurman was their outside run. So he said he doubts very seriously if they're going to get away from that. So we have to put personnel on the field to defend that. And then that's when we started looking at the film, the Raiders game, where they whooped the dog crap out of the Raiders, 45 zip or something, and it was a track race. But we found out, like, they were moving faster. You know how you get the cut-ups of film?
Yeah.
And the coach's tape, you could get one angle, but by the time they got to the next play, they were already in it before the camera was set. So we literally had to study one angle, coach's tape, and the other angle was the TV feed. So we had somebody record the game on TV, or we got the network copy because the network has so many other cameras. So we were able to catch everything they were doing. They were going like that, right? Yeah. So with all the crossing stuff that they did with Andre, and then, you had Lofton Deep. What Bill said, look, we will not, by the time we get to our pass drops, the ball is gone already. So he says, we're going to line up where we're going to be. Pre-snap, we're going to put 2 linemen in the game. And everybody else, we're going to line up off the ball. And when they start crossing, we hit them. We want to be in position as they catch the ball running across our defense, because if you line up and just try to drop out, the ball's going to be caught and they're going to be behind you. So our goal was just to line up. We had 2 down linemen. We had 2 outside rushers, but everybody else was off the ball just waiting for their crossing routes, and we just wanted to pound their receivers and to submission if we could. Like, we tried to kill them. But and we were so happy that Marv Levy didn't wake up and start running the ball more. I think Thurman ended up with like 100 yards. But if they'd have run the ball, we didn't have an answer for it because we didn't have the personnel on the field.
To do it.
Like, the personnel that we played then is probably would be great in today's game, But it was like they were just so fast. But the thing about that game was they played as good as we did, right? And it was the tale of 2 kicks, to be honest with you. Our punter, Sean Lendetta, on their last drive of the game, if he hits a bad punt, they're winning this game because it's a closer kick. And then their kicker obviously didn't have the range for that particular kick. But, as they lined up, I'm saying to myself, and I'm sure every man on the field, both sides of the football, probably said, if this goes in, they deserve it, because it was just that type of game. And like, they fought us, tooth and nail. We had a game plan. We were able to hold the rope just long enough, but that was one of the most talented teams and the hardest game I've ever played in, because they were just so hard to defend. Because from a talent perspective on both sides of the football, you didn't see that. You just didn't see that week to week. That, like, one side would be good and the other side would be just okay. They were good, both sides of football. So, like, if that kick went in, you tip your hat, because like, they played their ass off and they earned the right to be there. We had a game plan. I don't want to say we're lucky. We did what we had to do, both sides of the ball. And then, like I said, to tell the 2 kickers, our punter hits a great punt, and their kicker has one that's just not accurate enough. But the distance was, if our kicker kicked the ball 5 yards shorter, and they run their same offense, they win the game. And they run the same amount of plays, and we stopped them at the exact number of plays. They win the game because it's a closer kick.
Yeah.
Game of inches, man. That was one of the greatest games I ever watched in my life.
Absolutely,
I love
man.
it. It's awesome. I mean, I know you have a great feeling for winning and being a part of it, because so many great athletes. And like you said, it's rare when you play on a team in a game in particular that you neck and neck, y'all fight to the end. That is, and those are the games that you probably, I myself, I'm most fond of those games when we dog fight to the end. And
that was Kansas City, Buffalo. That was the same type of game. Yeah,
definitely. So
13 seconds, Kyle, you on defense. What is Belichick telling you guys in 13 seconds in that time?
Man, listen, I don't want to get Leslie Frazier in trouble with the fans. I think Leslie knows too. Hindsight is 20/20, but you don't let the top tight end in the league. You don't let the top tight end in the league run down the seam untouched. Like that is the backbreaker there of that entire drive. Like, you got to line up somebody on him and jam him at the line of scrimmage. Just 13 seconds. Who you think they're going to go to? And see, that was, look, again, let me preface this by saying Leslie Frazier's a hell of a defensive coordinator.
Yes, sir.
And I would play for him any day. But everybody has their moments. And this is me speaking. He could probably tell me I can go kick rocks because he saw something different. But here's what I do know, and I know a little bit about it. The drive starter for the Kansas City Chiefs was not Tyreek Hill. Anytime they needed a play or needed to start a drive, it ran through the tight end.
Yes.
You can't ignore that. When it's money time, and they need to get something going to get closer, it ain't Tyreek Hill. You go back and look at it. It runs through Jason Kelce.
They doing it now.
Yeah.
They're doing it now. It ain't
So
changed.
you put it more on Leslie Frazier as opposed to Sean McDermott, who's also a defensive coach?
I don't know. I said Leslie Frazier because he carries the title of defensive coordinator. And I'm not putting it on anybody. It's my observation. Right? So if I'm Leslie Frazier, I am jamming the tight end. I am not letting Kelce run free, untouched for 15 yards. It's just because every team has tendencies, right? And when you go back and look at Kansas City, everything they start their drives. When they need a play, it's the tight end. The cherry on top is those wide receivers. That's the fun stuff. But that tight end moves the ball up and down the field for them. And so when you need one, they sprinkle the eye candy of Tyreek Hill or cover the cross. Mm-hmm. You can do two things at the same time. You can cover the cross, but somebody's got to jam Kelce and pay him some attention. You just can't let him just run. So it's Sean, it's Leslie. It's just my observation. I think it's a pretty educated one that if you asked them if they would cover Kelce, in hindsight, they probably tell you, yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah. They that damn sure he's going to be covered this year when they face.
Ain't got Tyreek Hill no more. They better come.
Listen, but this is the thing, though. You got to look at this. Kansas City did not make one bit of fuss by Tyreek Hill leaving.
They didn't.
No.
Everybody else in the NFL, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Kansas City ain't take a peek because they knew that ain't their, bread and butter. Bread and butter is Kelce.
Yeah.
I mean, good passing it to that tight end. That's bread and butter. Yeah. That's like I formation. I formation. Count on it. So, oh man, Carl, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out and spending.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me, man.
Oh, this is beautiful. It's been an hour. We're working on trying to keep doing this, and we look to have you back soon.
Hey, listen, I'm more than honored and I'd love to come back. But when we close out our Believe podcast, Bob Papa and I do Believe in Giants. We always end it with tell a friend to tell a friend. So tell a Mafia friend to tell a Mafia friend to tune in to you guys.
Without a doubt, man. We Big Blue over here, and hopefully we can get that rematch. Giants and Bills.
That'd be
battle for New York. Battle for New York. I love that.
That would be fun.
Your impressions on this Buffalo Bills team, and what do you think their ceiling is this year?
My impressions are that all the predictions, the hype is real. And I don't think, projecting them as a Super Bowl participant and champion is a reach. They are that good.
Yeah, there you have it. There you have it. Answer your question, Mr. Hawkins.
Absolutely. Hey, I'll definitely be on the Believe in Giants podcast, a few times.
Sure enough.
just to give you the spiel. I hope I was accurate enough for you when you have me on about Joe Shane and Brian.
Oh, man, that was great insight. That's why I reached out, man, and it began the beginning of a great friendship, man. We found out we got some friends in common out of Buffalo, so it's all good, fellas. So I appreciate you having me, man. And again, to everybody out here in Bills land, looking at this, tell a friend to tune in.
That's
absolutely. And one more tidbit. Brian Dable was born and raised in Buffalo.
Yes.
Born and raised, if you didn't know, but it seems like you know that already.
Yeah.
So, he's definitely a good guy. But once again, man, Kyle Banks, Believe in Bills podcast, Reuben Brown, Justus the General, hey, do you believe now? All right. Make sure you can check us out. We'll be back this Thursday, brought to you on Bet Online. And Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to wager on your favorite sports contests, events with first to market odds and lines. Now, you can find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live games, betting props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today. Use your mobile device. Join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50. And that's not 50 points that the Bills are going to put up this week versus Tennessee. That is BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. And that's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. So that's our show for today. And once again, can you give us a prediction before you get up out of here, Kyle? Bills in Tennessee, Giants and Panthers before you go, please.
I got the Bills over Tennessee and Giants, Carolina. I like the Giants' chance. They're fighting, like I said, they're fighting in their weight class. I like their chances.
Definitely, I like their chances too. Right. I'm definitely rolling with the Giants. I definitely got a team in the NFC now to root for, and the Giants is definitely that team. So hopefully, my boy Dave's could be 2-0 and keep that thing rolling, guys. So hey, everybody, be safe and
appreciate you guys.
Not hate, and we'll see you on the next episode of Believe in Bills.
Appreciate you guys.
One love. Tell a friend.